What does it mean for you to practice mitzvot? What does it mean to connect to God? We all know that over 3,330 years ago, we received the Torah. From that moment on, God chose us as His nation, and we started putting in practice everything it says in the Torah. But at the time of Abraham, our first forefather, how did it actually happen? Well, the Talmud of Kiddushin says that Asa Avraham Avinu et kol haTorah kula lifnei shenitna. Avraham Avinu actually practiced and did the whole Torah before it was given. The expression over there is Asa. He did it. He did the Torah before it was given. In the Talmud of Yuma, Rav says, no. Avraham Avinu did not do the Torah, he accomplished the Torah before it was given. So what exactly is the difference? Accomplish, do? It seems to be all the same. But you see, with Avraham Avinu, we started a process. The process of Matan Torah, of receiving the Torah, actually started with Abraham, the first Jew. But how did it start exactly? They're actually looking at two ways on how the Torah came into the world. The opinion that says that Avraham Avinu actually accomplished the Torah, Kiyem Avraham Avinu et kol haTorah, is telling us that the Torah, with the creation of the world, the Torah as well was in the world. It wasn't yet given, it wasn't yet ordered, but Avraham Avinu did. He brought the Torah, which is the will of God, which was created 2,000 years before the creation of the world. And it was the intention with which God created the world. And Avraham said, the Torah exists, but I want to be able to do it. I want to be able to put it in practice and transform this spiritual reality into my personal practice. And therefore, according to this opinion, Avraham Avinu accepted the Torah and did every single mitzvah that we are doing in order to connect to God, in order to bring it in his reality. Avraham is a soul in a body, so he wanted to have this experience. According to the other opinion, that Avraham Avinu just did everything before it was given, it was done. He practiced everything. The Torah was not yet a reality in this world. It was still a part of the will of God, but not yet down in the world. And Abraham did what he felt. He felt the will of God and he just did it. So it really wasn't so important. You're going to say, what is the difference? It's just like a bar mitzvah boy. A bar mitzvah boy, before he becomes bar mitzvah, he is not commanded to do any mitzvah. He could put on tefillin before his bar mitzvah. He can say blessings and birkat hamazon and different types of blessings. But did he actually fulfill the commandment or not? One can argue that no, he did absolutely nothing. He just did an action. It was nothing what he did. Another could say yes, it was something. For him at a personal level, he did connect to the Torah. It wasn't counted as a mitzvah, but he actually did accomplish something. That's the simple explanation. To go to a deeper level, Avraham Avinu did the whole Torah. What does it mean? He did Asa Avraham Avinu et kol haTorah kula lifnei shenitna, that he did the whole Torah before it was given. The reality of Torah was still a desire, the will of God, and it was not yet a part of the world. But since Avraham Avinu is so connected to God, he is so given over to God, he passes every test that God gives his way. Avraham Avinu's will is no longer his will. His will is the will of God. And therefore, it's not enough for him that the will of God should stay up there. He wants to create the will of God down here. It's not just that he did the mitzvot, he created them. Meaning, he created the reality of mitzvot in this world. Actually, it's interesting because in the Talmud of Brachot there's an argument. There's an argument between two rabbis, Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It says in the Shema that Venatati esev besadecha livemtecha ve'achalta ve'savata. I will put and I will give a great harvest in your field, and you will go in your field and you'll be able to eat and be satiated. Rabbi Ishmael says, from this verse I learn that one needs to work for a living. You have to work for the money, right? And another opinion says, no, Rabbi Shimon says, what are you talking about? The person's going to plow, sow, harvest, and so on and so forth. What's going to happen with the Torah? Rabbi Shimon answers, if you do the will of God, if you actually do it, then your work will be done by others. But if you don't fulfill the will of God, then you have to do your work yourself. Now that just doesn't make sense, because the chapter in which it says you will go, I will give you the harvest in your field, is in the second part of the Shema. And over there it says, when you will listen to God, God will give you a beautiful, beautiful crops in your field. So it seems to be that if we listen to God, we do God's will, we will actually have to work. Rabbi Shimon says no. Actually, there's two dimensions. There's actually doing what God says, and there's actually fulfilling the will of God, creating the will. What does that mean? Imagine for a second that you ask your child to set up the table. And your child actually set up the table. There are forks, knives, plates, cups, napkins, etc. But it's not according to your will. You understand? There's a difference between listening to a commandment and actually doing your will. Your will is that you want it to be perfect. Your will is something more profound than just a commandment. You see, Avraham Avinu was so connected to God. Avraham is called a merkava, a chariot, the chariot for Hashem. What does that mean? A chariot, when you have a chariot, you have a carriage. You have a horse, you have a driver and a carriage. The horse wants to eat, but you whip it, you give it a carrot, it will go in another direction. The driver wants his money, so he'll carry you and take you on his Uber. The carriage doesn't have a will for itself. Avraham Avinu was so given over to Hashem that he didn't have a will for himself. And therefore he felt the will of God. He felt what really God intended, not only what he didn't command. The same with us. When God commands us, there's two ways to fulfill the command. Either to do it in a robotic fashion or to actually fulfill the will of God. Which means, what exactly was the intention? You ask yourself and you say, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it in such a way that I'm going to erase any of my thoughts or feelings. I'm just going to completely surrender to God's will. And that's why our sages teach us, En davar omed bifnei haratzon. Nothing stands before the will. Because the word ratzon in Hebrew, the will, is the same letters as the word tzinor, which is the pipeline. The moment that you actually fulfill the will of God, you realize the intention with which God commanded, and you surrender to it, then at that moment, you create a new pipeline. You actually do. You create the will of God, and you make it a reality in your reality, in this world. And therefore, next time you do a mitzvah, it's important to look, why are you doing this mitzvah? At the time of the Talmud, rabbis used to ask one another, B'mai havuch havezair tfeh. What was the mitzvah par excellence that your father used to take and make this the pipeline, so to say, the one mitzvah that he used to shine with this mitzvah? It's important that at least one mitzvah we should do in that same way, just like Avraham. We are his children, and we have that power to completely surrender and connect to the will of God, and by doing so, open new pipelines of blessings.